Hi folks, it's Connie from Faff Designs. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am a furniture painter and I am a brand ambassador for Dixie Belle paint. In the video today, I'm going to be painting this beast behind me. It's that big, you can't even fit it in. It's quite a large piece. We've got some stencil detail at the top, lots and lots of green, blue layers. Can't get enough of greens and blues. They're always fun to paint with. So stay tuned if you want to find out how I did this. And if you've got any questions, make sure you drop them in the comments below. Okay, so the first thing that I did was clean this piece with Dixie Belle's White Lightning and then rinsed it off. I then scuff sanded it, and next I added a base coat of Dixie Belle's Sea Spray mixed with Kudzu. Sea Spray is a powdered textured additive, and you can mix it in with your paint to create lots of different effects. For this, I'm stippling it all over with the Best Dang brush, which is a natural bristle brush, because I want lots and lots of texture for the base coat. Just a little bit of a close-up on how I am applying the Kudzu and Sea Spray mixture. So as you can see, I'm just dabbing it all over to create random texture. I am going over the handles and locks on this particular piece. I want it to look authentically aged and distressed, and although paint layers have been chipping off over the years. Once the Kudzu had completely dried, I left it to dry overnight before I did the next step. I then started layering up a couple of different yellows. So I have, just off camera, Rebel Yellow, which is a pale yellow, and Daisy, which is the brighter yellow that you can see. And I have vinegar in the spray bottle. So I've got a mixture of about 50-50 vinegar and water, and I'm just spritzing it over the yellows. I'm using the yellows kind of mixed together, but I want pockets of Daisy and areas where there is more Rebel Yellow. So using them in, not exactly mixing them, but kind of just layering them over the top of one another and adding a little bit more here and there, and kind of just making sure I'm standing back and looking what looks right and spritzing a bit of vinegar. And basically what I'm trying to do is add layers of paint that look convincingly old and battered and weathered, and the vinegar helps that look authentic because it separates the paint. So where Rebel Yellow and Daisy are layered up over the top of the Kudzu, it starts to separate those colours away from each other and gives a kind of weathered, authentic weathered look. There is really no right or wrong way in doing this. If you notice, I just keep standing back and looking at where I want to apply a little bit more yellow and spritzing it with vinegar and getting that to drip down the piece. And although I don't want the end result to look drippy, what happens is if you build up the layers in this way, when you distress your final colour back, you can see all of those variations of paint layers and colours underneath that distressing, and it just makes it look really, really authentic and weathered. So if you notice right at the very bottom, I'm using a lot more yellow than on the rest of the piece, and it's basically because I am trying to just give a lot of variation in the colour when it is distressed back. So you'll see some areas that have a lot more yellow underneath and some areas that have a lot more of the green underneath. Okay, so my final colour, once all of the yellow has completely dried, and because I did spray it with quite a lot of the water vinegar solution, I left that to dry overnight to make sure that it was bone dry. So the final colour that I'm using, or one of the final colours that I'm using, is Antebellum Blue. It's a gorgeous colour, it covers really well, and I'm not using any water mixed with this. I'm applying it with quite a thick coat of paint, because I only want to do one coat, because I am going to be distressing this back. So I'm applying it with a premium chip brush to get some of that kind of rustic textured feel. I don't want a completely smooth finish for this piece. So I'm going to apply that all over, and then I'll distress it back. Another colour that I'm going to use before I distress is Mermaid Tail. So I'm using an artist brush, and I'm just picking out some detail on the top and around the trim areas. I'm also going to pick out the framework around the door, and it just really gives it a little bit of variation other than just having that flat one colour finish that you'll see. It just adds to the detail and makes it a little bit more interesting. So all the layers are down. I'm happy with how the layers are looking, and I decided to add some detail, some stencil detail with the Lotus Bloom stencil on the top and around the sides of the piece. I'm using the colour Drop Cloth with a little bit of sea spray mixed in to make the mixture a lot thicker and give it a little bit of texture, so that when I distress, it's going to chip away at that stencil and make it look authentically aged. Now for the fun part, I'm using my Festool sander to distress the piece all over, and this is going to reveal all the colours and shades underneath, and all the texture that I built up, including the pops of yellow that we'll be able to see hopefully peeping through. So I'm just using my sander with various different types of pressure added and different angles, so that I get a kind of chippy effect. Once I was satisfied with all the distressing that I'd done, it took quite a long time, but obviously I fast forwarded most of it for the benefit of the video. I applied the top coat, which I'm using Best Dang Wax in this case. I'm applying it with a blue applicator sponge because I've got quite a lot of large flat surfaces, and I really like applying wax with a sponge because it gives a really thin, even coat over the paintwork, and it also helped me get in all of those little spindle details on the doors without putting too much wax on too thickly. So I applied it all over to the piece, and then I am going to add some brown wax to age it. Okay, so I've just zoomed in on the very top part so that I can show you how I apply the brown wax. So Best Dang Wax in brown is really, really good for adding age and depth to your piece. And I'm just using a premium chip brush, and I am very, very roughly adding the wax all over the sort of creases and corners, and where I want to basically add a little bit of that depth to show age. Don't be too worried about going in heavy-handed with the coloured wax. As you can see, I am really roughly adding it on to where I want that deeper shade to be, but because I have that first coat of clear wax, This is going to give me really good control over the coloured wax, and it's going to mean that I can quite easily remove any excess, like I'm doing now with a microfiber cloth, and it just means that you have a lot more control and you can remove it all together. As long as you put that clear base coat down first, you can control the coloured wax a lot more easily. And all I'm doing is basically building up that brown wax in areas that would collect dust and dirt. If you were to look at an authentically old piece, it would be in the corners, in the cracks, in the crevices, down the hinges, around the handle, where it's going to get a lot of use and a lot of wear and tear. So I'm just making sure that I am highlighting those with the wax and then rubbing it away to really work that into the paint. Now for the inside, I never abandon the inside of my pieces, and this is a really good way of refreshing them. So I'm actually using Big Mamas Butta tinted with no paint gel stain to make a sort of a stained waxed finish. You can use coloured wax for this, but I am using these products because they mix together really well due to the consistency. They're both oil-based products, and also you have the option of the scented butters. My absolute favourite is Orange Grove. It smells absolutely beautiful. And basically all I've done is mix the two together on a paper plate. I've cut an applicator pad in half. The colour that I've tinted the Big Mamas Butta with in this case is Colonial Black, just to give that really warm toned wood a little bit of depth, and tinted it down slightly darker. Obviously your wax stain will differ depending on how much of the no paint gel stain you add versus how much Big Mamas Butta you use, but I've barely used any no paint gel stain at all. I've only used a really small amount just to deepen the wood grain slightly, and then when you have finished applying, you just rub away with a dry towel or a rag or shop cloth. That buffs the no paint gel stain and Big Mamas Butta mixture. It also removes any excess, and it just gives it a really gorgeous sheen. Okay, so you can see a couple of close-up shots of the detail on the stencil and the distressing, and here is the final staged piece. Thank you for watching the video today. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I say, let me know if you have any questions, drop them below, and make sure you are subscribing to my YouTube channel.